Are we ready? All right. Hello, everybody. Oh, this is great. You guys are so communicative tonight. So much fun to do. We're so glad you guys are here. We are coming into the week of Thanksgiving. And so I just want to acknowledge that as we start our service tonight. We have a very exciting service. Bob is preaching tonight. Now, I know this week probably comes with a lot of different feelings, and I just want to take some time and pause and acknowledge that. I know for those who have, I know for myself and for Scott, we've got kiddos home this week, and he's home because he's a teacher, and so there's some togetherness that is celebrated and wonderful. But I also want to acknowledge that this is often a week that may have some triggers and some deeper emotions of loneliness, missing people that we're not able to be around, missing family, or grieving family that's not safe and not accepting of us. And so I just want to take a second and just acknowledge that and recognize that there may be a lot of triggers around us this week. And so just know that it is okay if this is not a good week for you. Just know that it's okay if there are good and hard moments. If it's mixed, you are valid. So I'm going to take a second. I just invite you to close your eyes. And I just want to invite you to take a deep breath. And if it's possible, to put your feet on the ground or to feel your legs against the seat of your chair, your arms on the table, to get that sense of feeling of grounding, of being connected to something that is below you. And as you do that, I want you to take a deep breath. And I know that we are inside, and I know the things below you are floor and plastic table and metal chair, but below those things is dirt. And below that dirt is rock and water and fire. You are connected to this planet. And on that soil and rock and water and fire, this entire planet holds every single human being. And you are an incredibly valuable part of that. I want you, as you take in some deep breaths and you focus on that feeling of the ground below you, to know that you are valuable, that your emotions are valid, that your experiences are valid, that your trauma is not dismissed or discounted. And that as you sit here in this space, and I know that may not be the case for you in every space you walk into, in every piece of this city, but as you come into this space, I hope you know that you are loved, that you are celebrated, and that you are worth knowing and loving and being there for. I know Thanksgiving is a season with a lot of complicated emotions, even with the history of Thanksgiving. And I want to acknowledge that while we often celebrate the gratefulness of this season and how relevant and beautiful that is, I also want to recognize that what we credit to be the first Thanksgiving was a time in our history of a lot of complicated relationships with the indigenous populations that we came in and took land from in a lot of really awful ways. And here in our community, we have the Osage, the Kickapoo, and the Delaware tribes that once called this land their own. And I want to take a second and just a moment of silence and to honor them, to honor their history, to honor their families and their losses. I myself am a daughter of immigrants that came to this country long ago, and I hold a deep respect for the people whose ancestors lived on this ground and this earth long, long before ships ever sailed oceans. But I also hold on to a hope that reconciliation and healing is possible when we are honest, and when we acknowledge, and when we recognize the imprint of our own people. And so I don't want to sing. I'm going to read a poem, and it's a poem written by Allison Adele Hedge-Koch, who is an Indigenous poet, and it's this really beautiful song called America, I Sing Back. If you want to close your eyes and listen, you can. If you want to look around, whatever feels good for you. America, I sing back. Sing back what sung you in. Sing back the moment you cherished breath. Sing you home into yourself and back to reason. Oh, before America began to sing, I sung her to sleep. Held her cradle board, wept her into day. My song gave her creation, prepared her delivery, held her severed cord beautifully beaded. My son helped her stand, held her hand for her first steps, nourished her very being, fed her, placed her 3 sisters strong. My song comforted her as she battled my reason, broke my long-held footing sure as any child might do. Lo, as she pushed herself away, forced me to remove myself. As I cried this country, my song grew roses and each tear's fall. My blood-veined rivers painted pipestone quarries, circled canyons while she made herself maiden fine. Oh, but here I am, here I am, here. I remain high on each and every peak, carefully rumbling her great underbelly, prepared to pour forth singing. And sing again I will, as I have always done. Never silenced unless in the company of strangers, singing the stoic face, polite repose, polite while dancing deep inside, polite. Mother of her world, sister of myself, when my song sings again, aloud again, when I call her back to cradle, call her to peer into waters, to behold herself in dark and light, day and night, call her to sing along, call her to mature, to envision, then she will make herself over. My song will make it so. When she grows far past her self-considered purpose, I will sing her back, sing her back. I will sing. Oh, I will, I do. America, I sing back what sung you in. Oh, Creator, oh God, I just want to lift up my friends. I want to lift up this city, and I want to lift up this nation and all the people who have called this nation home, and those who have been harmed by this nation, this state, this city. And I just acknowledge and validate and speak into words experiences that deserve to be heard and known. I honor whatever this week holds for every person in this room. I honor the history that we have come from, and I hold hope for our future. As we move into a time where we get to listen to Bob and his words, and I just hold this space as sacred, and I'm grateful that we share breath here. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. I can't promise you how this will go. It's the first time I've tried anything like this. Not sure, more preaching or just a conversation. I want to share some things about me. I know a lot of you guys know my story as from the addict side of my world. I'm alcoholic. I think this Christmas will be 21 years sober. I think most of you guys know that subject, you know. But that's not what I want to talk about tonight. I wanting to kind of just talk about my walk with God and how that kind of played out through the years of this crazy world that I've walked out. So my walk was, in the beginning, probably, I was young, but a little bit dishonest walk with God, because I only went to church because my dad went to church and we were close. And so it started very young. You know, I went because he did, because I wanted to spend time with Dad. And I continued to go with him. We went thing. I was Episcopalian. I even made my confirmation. I was an altar boy. You know, I did all the proper things in church that you're supposed to do on that side of the world. As things progressed, my father got sicker and sicker, and my dad ended up bedridden. Guess about 7th grade, my grandma died. And so after that happened, I pretty much just said, I'm done with church. You know, I don't need that. I don't want to deal with that. They weren't there when I needed, well, let me recap. At that point in time in my life, he wasn't there to support my family or take care of us. My dad was horribly sick. My grandma died. So I was just like, I'm done. And I don't want to say I wasn't done with God as in believing. I just was done dealing with church at that point and dealing with, I felt deflated because I didn't think God was there to look out for my family. And so I wandered aimlessly through my addicted years. I drank a lot, and every once in a while when things got bad, I'd still say a prayer, you know, God, just, watch this, do that. I attended a couple church services here and there, but pretty much I was done until I was roughly 32. And so what happened was I through that lifestyle, I moved all over the states, and I was everywhere. You know, I lived in Georgia, Florida, Oregon, and California, all in the same year. My wife called me a traveling gypsy at that time, so it's kind of crazy. Then I came to Missouri, and one of my best friends lived here. Then, you know what happened? I met my beautiful wife. So this whole time, from the time I was roughly 13 years old, 14 years old, I was just kind of doing my own thing. I walked that walk out thinking the Bible was just like guidelines, right? And so as long as I was living sort between those and I was a good person, that everything was going to be okay. That was good enough. And so as I moved through life, and then God blessed me by bringing Christy into my life, because that changed my whole world. In the beginning, I didn't think it was. As I think one of the first conversations when we were talking, I was like, I know you're a Bible thumper, but please know that I'm not going to go to church with you every Sunday, because that's not me. I'll go with you on the holidays. I'll do that stuff with you. I said, but I'm not going to go to church every day. I was like, I just, every Sunday, I don't want to be there. Maybe I'll go on Sundays, but I'm not going to go on Wednesdays because I don't want to be no part of that, and it just escalated into the craziness. So, we're going on Wednesdays and Sundays, and next thing you know, I'm getting baptized. But through this is where I'm really finally starting to realize what kind of God our God is, right? Because growing up, I didn't have that personal relationship, so there wasn't really I would talk, but it wasn't a conversation, it wasn't like today, I can just have a conversation. I can just talk to them, and they listen, and they absorb it, and they want to be part of that, and they want to know what I'm saying. But growing up in the Episcopalian world, it wasn't like that, I think Episcopalians is like the stepbrother of the Catholic Church, so not all. There's a little bit of difference there, so it wasn't quite the same, but it just wasn't that personal relationship. So I met my wife, and I think that started opening my eyes, right? And so then I read the Bible more. I listened to more of the messages at church and things, and hear people start talking about the red letters of the Bible, and I'm like, wow, this is a cool theory, it's really good. And so I started doing some things like that. I volunteered with the disaster relief team. I started doing a couple things here, and I thought, I'm doing my part. You know what I mean? Now I'm doing my part. I go to church on Sundays and Wednesdays. If there's a disaster, I go out and, I help, and, and that's pretty much it. recap, sorry. I think I've always had a little bit of a heart to want to help people. So like on personal levels, I've kind of been there and done that kind of stuff my whole life. But as stepping into a Christian, I thought, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is what I do. I go to church on Wednesdays, I go to church on Sundays, and I help whenever there's a disaster. So I'm doing pretty good. But as we progressed and we walked out this walk, the more we walked and the closer we got, my wife started an international women's ministry, and that opened my eyes up to so many things because we traveled and we got to talk to a lot of different people, got to see a lot of different perspective. We left the church that we were at that time, and so we moved to a church to Springfield, a Baptist church that allowed my wife to teach but not preach. But through that process, right, it opened my eyes to so many things about God. Through that, when I started seeing that and I started learning, because in my heart, I don't think that I ever have or I ever meant to make anybody feel less than me or smaller than I was. But some of the churches tend to do that, especially to women and to some of our LBG, gay and lesbian counterparts. And so I didn't feel like I've been that person to do that. I wasn't raised that way, but going through these churches, I realized how much that this was happening. So then we go to this church, right? And they're like, oh yeah. And so Christy gets up there and she's teaching, and I think she was like second or third most one out of the teaching team of 5 anyways. I'm getting off on a tangent. But through this process, I think my faith kept growing, and I kept learning that it's more, God's expecting more out of me. God wants more out of me. And so not knowing what it is, the next thing you know, we're leading a small group. And to be honest, that's the first time that I ever had any true interactions with the gay and lesbian world. We had several people that were in our small group. Funny, they didn't even know that they were coming to a small group at a Baptist church. But so that was my first interaction, and it was very eye-opening for me. It was a lifestyle, and it took a little getting used to, and it's not that I just had never had a chance to do that. And so I think as that, my faith just kept growing, right? And I kept seeing this, and then I keep hearing these things about the red letters of Jesus, and the red letters of Jesus, and I'm like, okay, I've seen them, I've read them, and I know, but I think for me, as my walk of faith came out, it really started showing. And then we bounced around different churches until we were trying to find what our home was going to be. And I think my faith grew a little bit. I kept helping a little bit more here, and I do a little bit more here. We went to church, and I was helping with the coffee stuff. I was doing some maintenance on their building, and I think I just kept feeling like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what for me. But what I'm getting around to is what I didn't realize was until we launched TCG, what living out the red letters of Jesus meant. And so I spent all those years thinking that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And when I really look back at it, it was actually, I was doing the minimal amount that I chose to do in that walk. It wasn't what God was calling me to, it was what I was willing to accept and to allow to happen. And so my eye-opening experience was when we launched TCG. In that first winter, let me tell you something, that was a long winter. We opened our building as the intermediate shelter from 4 until 8, which they told us you should only be there from 6 to 8, but we don't do anything halfway. So we opened from 4 to 8, and it was a very eye-opening experience. And a lot of our friends are there, huh? Marcus was there. We've seen a lot of people, and so I grew to love a lot of people, and I grew to realize that, oh yeah, I know Dave wasn't there very often. He had to leave most of the time. But he did get fed before he left, though. But yeah, so it just, learning to live with the red letters of Jesus were. And as I walked through that process, learning more about God, because I think part of my problem, and I think it seems like a part of what a lot of people's problem is as they're trying to walk out their walk with God. It seems to me, looking around, is we put them in a box, right? And so if they're in a box, we're in a box. So if I'm going to church on Wednesdays and Sundays, and if I'm doing these very minimal things, I can understand how people walk within that box, right? Because that's where they're putting our God. They're putting our God in a box. And so for me, it didn't start changing until we started doing CCG, and then started getting really crazy, and there's talk about deconstruction, and which is, nobody's tearing the church apart. It's, for me, it is allowing myself to learn more about God and being able to have some open-mindedness about what I'm looking at and what we're talking about when we're going into that. I won't go into it because I'll get off on a tangent. It's hard, right? For me, when I started opening my eyes and I started noticing things different, was when I realized if you step back and you take the Bible into perspective, for me, it's hard because it was written by men in a man's world where people were thought less of. And that was hard for me. It's hard for me to take that in perspective. It's hard for me to think every word is exactly perfectly written down, because it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before it ever touched a piece of paper. So for me, opening my eyes to some of that, it allowed my heart to grow. It allowed my mind to grow and my walk with God to grow, because now I realized I was putting my God in a box, right? And he's so much bigger than that. And he's so much bigger than that. And I started to realize, like, things, I called my God the Father and him for decades. And now I look and I said, for me, and I don't know for anybody else, for me, I can't see that. I can't put them in that box and say, because now that I look at God, God is so much bigger than that. And God would not want us to put them in that little box and say, this is what you are, this is what I am, this is it. I just can't see that anymore. And so through that walk and through getting to know that God that loves me and is willing to accept me for who I am, is when I really, and I feel like I'm walking more where God wants me to be now, because I really think that I try to live out the red letters to God, Jesus. I'm here. I try to love everybody. Can't promise I like everybody. But, I really do try to love everybody. I try to be there when people need stuff. I get up off the couch. I never wanted to think I was a lukewarm Christian, but I think as I look back at my walk, I spent a lot of years as a lukewarm Christian. I spent a lot of years just doing the minimum to get by. And I'm not saying everybody has to do what we do and jump right out there and run with what we do, but if everybody did a little bit more and stepped a little bit more out of their comfort zone and was just willing to make their box for God a little bit bigger, take them out of that little box, make them a little bit, I'm not saying that you need to take them out of the box altogether, because it might be too much for you, but make the box a little bit bigger so that you can accept a little bit more, because our God is huge. They're huge, and they want to be part of your life. They want to have conversations with you. They want to lead you out to do the things that they want you to do. They're going to walk alongside you. They're going to help you through that. And it's just so hard now to look back and say, I can't believe that I kept them in this little bitty box on my shelf, and this is what I thought it was. This was it. And so as long as I could put all the stuff that I had to do that day inside that box, I was good. But as that box has grown over the years, and I've opened my eyes to more and more things, I think that's what I would never have been up here talking. Not talking in front of people has never bothered me, but being in this situation, being in front of our family at TCG, I probably never would have done it in this phase. So I'm just, I guess, in a big roundabout and crazy way, I think what I'm just trying to say is you got to be willing to wrestle with God. You got to be willing to take those next steps. You know, it's hard, it's scary. I'll be honest, you know, it's hard and it's scary, because when I accepted him into my heart and God became, you know, part of me, our life didn't get any easier. It wasn't like, poof, you know, everything was okay, finances were great. You know, we never had another argument, life was magnificent. It's not true. I think, honestly, it feels like things have probably been harder than it's ever been. But I think that's part of that is, and it's not, doesn't have to be for everybody, is I think is when you're walking out those red letters, because you're not so concentrated on just yourself and your stuff. And so when you're willing to give your time and your patience and your heart to other people, I think it changes things. Don't get me wrong. I feel rich inside because of the people that I have in my life now. But I don't know, I'm getting kind of off the subject. I'm sorry, guys. I just want you to know that it's worth it. It's worth it to stretch the box. It's worth it to know that they're bigger than that, and they want to know you. They want to be part of your life. They want to walk with you through that. And sometimes it's going to take stepping off the step without being able to see the next one, but it's worth it. It really is, because it'll change how you look at the world. It'll change how you look at the people around you, and it'll change how you love people. Because walking this out has changed my life and my perspective. I think it allows me to love my wife better than I've ever loved her, and my family and my kids. I think as I've done this walk and thing, I think it allows me to open my eyes up to love my, because when you let other people into your heart and you love other people, I think, because everybody is different, right? So love here, love there, love, it looks different, right? Because one porcupine has a lot of quills, one doesn't have any, and one's a bunny, and so, you know what I mean? So loving people's different, and I think, so when you let people into your life, it teaches, you know, in a loving situation, it teaches you how to love different people. So overall, I think it teaches you how to share your heart with people better. And so I just hope that in a little bit that you guys will be willing to step out and just do a little bit more. Like I said, make the box a little bit bigger, open it up a little more, accept God for being bigger than that, so that you can take some of those steps and you can believe. Because like I said, they want to talk to you, they want to walk out with you, they want to be part of your life, they want to be there to cheer you on when you take the big steps. And it's worth it. That's all I can tell you. It's worth it. You know, I'm glad that my Bible thumping wife was there to show me that God had bigger plans for me, and to not give up on me when I was willing to let them give up on me. So thank you guys. I don't even know how long I've been talking. I don't even know how long I was supposed to be talking. There's no clock here. There's no nothing. So I'm not good at judging that time, so I don't know. How do you feel that you keep God in a box? What things do you feel that, if you think about it, you keep them in this box, but you know, what things do you guys feel that you keep, how you keep God in the box? Because, you know, I know sometimes it was like, well, this, for me, it's like, God couldn't, this is just a little thing, so I can't ask him about that, because God won't care about my little problem, right? Because he's dealing with all these other big problems, and that's keeping God in a box, right? Because God's bigger than that. So just talk about, you guys amongst yourselves at your tables, and just what what kind of things do we keep inside of, keep God inside of a box? How do we do that? Oh, big group.
Being nice and doing nice things is just
Yep. Yep. That's living between those two covers, right? That I was talking about is just as long as I do this, I'm okay. You know. Yeah, it's keeping them in a box. Keeping them in a box. Yep. Well. But they do. They do. They want you to talk to them about that. They want you to ask to help with guidance with that. But we don't because of that same reason. Anybody else got anything? How they work to keep? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. You're right, and I know my words aren't always, but that's kind of where I was going with the deconstruction thing when I was talking about, right? It's because you were taught this, and so to when you go down that road, right, it opens your mind to so many other things, you know, when you can actually start, well, what's this, and what does this mean, and more than just the Bible says so, right? The Bible is the final and ultimate word, and it is. God's word is it, but did anything get lost in the translation? Was there anything when it was, you know, the guy was tapping it out on the rock? Did he misspell something? Or when we added homosexual to the Bible in 1930s or something? 60s? Oh man, I'm seeing 30 years off, you know, that's even sadder. So, you know what I mean? It's just that, so to allow myself to look at things differently has opened my heart and opened my mind to so many things, because, you know, forever it was like, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. And then you go, that was a very male-dominated world. Most of the population couldn't read or write, you know, and so it was spoken and spoken and spoken for 500 years before somebody put it down on a piece of paper. So if I started a conversation over here, and by the time it got back around to Holly, I guarantee you the story would be different. And that would only take 5 minutes, right? And so I think it allowed me, through the deconstruction, it's allowed me to look at things differently. You know what I mean? And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that our God is a loving God, and He allows us to look at that stuff and to, you know, to question some of that stuff and to have conversations about that and to kind of see what it looks like. And I'm not saying I don't disrespect God, but He does allow us to look at things differently. You know, I love our God. Anybody else have anything that they feel they keep. Yeah, I can see it. Untouchable, right? Absolutely. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that my box is wide open yet, because I don't know if I'm ready to open it all the way up. But I like to think that I put him in a lot bigger box so that I can expand a lot more. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's right, you know. And I've said it for a long time now, though I've had discussion with you. You know, I believe that God's here walking with me every day, right? And so when stupid things happen or when I trip and fall, most of the time for me it feels like it's because I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask, you know, because today Holly, you know what I mean, walks alongside me. There's a reason why that person's there, right? And so if something's going to happen, I'm going to stumble. It's my own fault because I didn't ask, you know. So I didn't put, you know, God puts people in our lives every day to help us with all those things. And most of the time it's because we don't ask them to help us through the people that he sent or whatever. So I don't know. I'm very thankful for the walk and for the time, and I'm very thankful that God has allowed me to wrestle with so many things. And without being the God so many times that have been in the Bible that's just like, no, this is it. And through our walk, I've learned that they're open to a lot of conversations. They're open to talk about a lot of things. They're open to allow you to discover more about yourself and about them and about the people that are around you, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful that I'm amongst a group of people that allow us to do that without being too judgmental of me. But you know, I'm blessed at this point in my life to have all of you guys in my life and to have a wife that is willing to encourage me to think outside of the box. Because I think for a long time I would probably still keep a lot of that within the box of restraints. So I really do. I appreciate you guys listening to me. And am I going long enough? So, anyways, I do appreciate you guys listening to me and putting up with me. But I do ask you to you know, try to expand the box just a little bit. It'll be amazed if you don't have to go all at once. You don't have to open it wide open, but just expand it a little bit at a time, and it'll be just amaze you at the way your faith would grow.
Okay, don't run away yet. Because we don't get you up here very often. That's the first time you've ever done this. So Bob came to me about a year ago, and he said, I think I'm supposed to talk at service one night. And I was like, oh yeah, what are you going to talk about? And he's like, I have no idea. And I was like, well, when do you want to do it? And he goes, as far out as possible. And I was like, well, how about next year, right before Thanksgiving? And he was like, okay, that's good. That's good. So we don't get Bob up here very often. So I've got a couple questions for you. So one of my questions that I would love for you to talk about for a minute is talk a little bit about how, as your faith has grown and as your heart has changed, talk a little bit about how you have maybe learned to connect with emotions a little bit differently.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if, yeah.
You didn't know I could make him speechless, did you?
That's a hard one, right? I mean, I think I've always been emotional, but I think through this walk and through this, expansion in my life of God, it's really opened up my heart to know that I can be emotional. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to show my emotions. It's okay, and that means good emotions, bad emotions, crying, happy. It's okay to hug people. It's okay to tell a brother that you love them or a sister that you love them. And I think if any of you has been around me probably for any amount of time, you probably see me cry. And if you haven't, you will before it's done. It's just, I think that this walk and through the deconstruction and through the growth, I'd like to think that I've grown in my walk, and through that I've realized it's okay, I don't have to be a macho guy that doesn't cry in front of people or whatever. And so, honestly, I cry more than Christy does. So there's not enough sporting events to make Christy cry every day. So, yeah.
So I asked that question because I think that knowing you through so much of this journey, that's one of the things that I think I've had the privilege to watch, is as you've become more in touch with your emotions, but also learn to embrace those. Because I think, and a lot of you in here, especially a lot of the guys in here, I think we have this very toxic version of male emotion. And like, I have to be tough, I have to have it all together, I can't feel, I can't hurt, I can't show weakness in any way, shape, or form. And I think one of the things that I appreciate so much about you is you are probably one of the greatest role models of someone who's learned to embrace those emotions that you have and not to be afraid to show them. And I think a lot of times those messaging, and it happens for women and for all of us, but I think it's something that men are particularly vulnerable to with mental health, is like, especially in the church, we have this toxic narrative that you have to have it all together and be tough and you can't fall apart. And so I want you to hear that, and something that I think you're uniquely qualified to speak into is that ability to recognize that you don't have to have it all together all the time. And that there are going to be days that you've got big feels and you're entitled to those no matter what that looks like. And how we learn how to process those differently and what that looks like, I think is really important. And just a challenge for yourself to learn how to connect with some of that. Because as you put God out of a box, like Bob's challenging you, guess who also comes out of a box? Yourself. Because when you put God into a box, you also box yourself in. You box your faith in, you box in your own expectations, your own behaviors. So as you start to expand your view of God more, you also are going to find that you are challenged to learn new things about yourself too.
Good point. Yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah, I don't know. It has. It's been a learning experience to embrace the feelings and the emotions that come with it. Like I said, I've always been on the border of having a lot of emotions, but having emotions is different than knowing that you can have them and you can express them, and it's okay to express them. It's not. I don't feel ashamed when I cry. When I get upset, I embrace those. I try to embrace all my emotions. And so I think that has helped me walk it out, and I think it's helped me to learn how to love other people because of being open to sharing my emotions and opening my heart so that my emotions will flow a little better. I think that's been a big part of this end of the walk for me.
So I have one other question for you. So the other place that I've seen a lot of growth in you is in your ability to learn how to prophetically love people. So if you've hung around TCG for any length of time, this is a concept I talk about a lot. Prophetic love means we don't just love you where you're at. I love the potential that's in you. And I'm willing to not just love the potential in you, I'm going to stick with you and help love that potential out of you into reality. And I think Jesus was like the poster person for prophetic love, right? Like you look at all of the disciples, you look at the way that Jesus engaged with people, he saw potential and he called it out of people. He developed it out of people. And I think one of the things that I have loved watching about you over the last few years as you've grown more and more is how you have learned to see that potential in people, and you've learned to help love that out of people, and having kind of a softening of your heart in some of those places. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Prophetic love is hard. It's hard because it comes with a lot of hard conversations. Let me hold on a second. Prophetic love is an amazing thing. And trying to see the good in people and love it out of them is possible. I may not always like the person though, and that's hard. Prophetic love is hard, right? Because when you're loving people where they're at, and that's mindset, mental illness, addiction, just downright assholism, whatever they're in, it's hard. You know what I mean? And it's just hard, but it's worth it. You know what I mean? I like to think that, you know, there's some people in this room that I've got to touch part of their life by sticking out some of the crap that, you know, we had to walk out. And so, I mean, it's worth it. And if you have a chance to do it and you find somebody that you can believe in, giving them the chance, believe to giving them a chance, because it's worth it. You got to show them, live the red letters, right? Show the love, show up, make the phone calls, be there. You can't do it for everybody because it's just, you can't be that person for everybody, but hopefully as you go through life, if you teach somebody else, if you can love them that way and you can teach somebody else to do that, hopefully they can do that for one or two people and just grow it. It's amazing no matter what the situation is, no matter where it leads off to in the future, because you may not see it after it's blossomed, but to know, it's just not words for it. I mean, I don't.
How many of you in here have benefited from Bob's prophetic love? Sometimes I don't think we get to see the ripple effects of our love, and sometimes we do, right? Sometimes love means that you love and you trust as they go out into the world and do something. Sometimes love means you get a front row seat to like watch the greatest show and transformation and beauty and ups and downs and all the things, right? And I think when you've experienced prophetic love, and a lot of you just raised your hand, you also have a responsibility to then turn around and show prophetic love to others. And that's part of taking God out of the box too, is realizing that that box wasn't just hand delivered to you, that gift of relationship with you and the way that it changes your heart is also a call for you to share and then turn around and share what you've experienced. And so I think that is one of the beauties of the legacy of love, is that it just keeps regenerating itself out of new people. And so from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of so many that have been loved by you well, I'm proud of you, and thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for putting up with me. I love all of you guys.
You did a great job. Same time next year. That's what Bob says. Okay, a couple of announcements for you, and then we're going to call it tonight. You guys can hang around. There's lots of food left and coffee, so feel free to stick around and talk for a while. Few announcements for you. No coffee and questions this week because it is Thanksgiving week. We do, however, have a dinner Wednesday night. If you have been part of the last few months and getting to cheer Charles on and prophetically get to love Charles, he is celebrating some really cool milestones and getting ready to graduate and all the things. So we're going to be celebrating him Wednesday night. So if you want details about that, come see me. I'd be happy to fill you in. But no coffee and questions, no sober support this week. I know that this week comes with a lot of triggers. I know that there's a lot in that. So if you're struggling from a sobriety point, you've got people to reach out to. You've got Bob, you've got me, you've got Rue, you've got Delana, you've got Mike, you've got TJ, you've got Chris, you've got everyone in this room, literally. Pick up the phone and call somebody if you're struggling, okay? So don't feel like because we don't have a formal meeting that you don't have tools and you don't have people. If you are having a hard time this week, reach out 100%, okay? Other announcements for you. Thursday is Thanksgiving. We are going to do a sober, safe Thanksgiving here. So we will eat at noon. I will be here probably about 11. We are going to have so much food, it's not even funny. So come and hang out. We're going to have turkey and ham and all the fixins, lots and lots of desserts. We'll have football on the TV. I'm going to bring some board games. So we're just going to hang out and have a really good time. We'll probably be here until 3:30 or 4 that day, and then we can all go home and take a nap and crash. So sound good? Okay, cool. So you don't have to listen to me preach, not just this week, but also the next 2 weeks. So y'all get Rue next week. I'm going to be out of town. So enjoy that. Rue's going to bring a Thanksgiving message on gratitude. So I'm super excited. And then immediately after that, we launch into Christmas season. Like, how did that happen? So we're going to start Advent, and Holly's going to kick off our Advent series. So Holly will preach the first week of December. So I won't be here that week either. So I'm going to miss you guys for the next couple weeks. So, but I'll see you all around in other places, I'm sure. So anyway, that's all that I've got for you tonight. If you need something, let us know. Like I said, feel free to hang out. There's lots of leftovers. I've got containers if you want to take some home. So, love you guys. Thanks again, Bob.